The 1987 to 1990 drought that many of us still remember has now been bumped to the second driest 4 years on record. The 1948 to 1951 drought still remains the driest 5 years on record in Santa Barbara, making it the drought of record and the basis for the city's water supply planning efforts over the years. That is until today. The drought we are currently in is now the driest 4 years on record, 20% drier than the drought of 1987 to 1990. Fortunately, the city's water supply is made up of diverse sources, which includes desalination.
There's Lake Kachuma, there's Lake Gibraltar, there's state water, there's groundwater, there's purchasing water, there's conservation, there's recycled water. And yet, even with this exceptional drought, we're running out of all those options. And so desal has become the last option that we're looking at that we really need. If we don't have significant rainfall in the next 12 to 15 months, even with a 25% conservation by all of us, we would still need desal for 30% of our water supply by September 2016. So it's so important that we have this as one option. It's not the option, but to have that in the portfolio of all the different options we have is really helping us making sure that we can supply water for truly good health and safety reasons.
Every drought, we continued, I believe, to improve our water supply planning, and it's all about diversity. So that's how you are able to weather, you don't lose a supply and you're completely in a pinch. We need to diversify. We recognized that during the last drought. That's why we went ahead and perfected our permits here to operate this desalination plant. We understand the vulnerable situation we live in as a community. And so to have this facility and bring it online provides the ultimate in water supply reliability.
The Charles Meyer Desalination Facility was constructed in response to the drought of 1987 to 1990. It was operated for 3 months and has been in long-term storage ever since. But it has always been a critical part of the city's water supply portfolio in case of future droughts.
The voters voted this in at the last drought, and they had the foresight to say this needs to be part of the solution. Not the solution, but part of the solution. And even though we're talking about big money to get this plant up and running again, we didn't have the land, the bones basically, the foundation. We'd be looking at almost twice as much to do a new desalination plant. So the foresight of leaders and the voters from back in the late 80s, early 90s during the last drought to have this as an option over time has really helped us.
We've seen the Carlsbad desalination plant. It's been in design and now finally in construction, but it started over 15 years ago. So I feel very fortunate with our facility that we have the basic infrastructure here, we have the permits in place, and so even though it's going to take us 12 to 14 months to bring this facility back online, we are so far ahead because there are so many factors to consider with desalination process that we're in a good place.
Given that the plant has been in long-term storage mode for the past 22 years, a lot has changed in desalination technology. The City Council directed staff to start the process to bring the plant back online about 1 year ago, with the goal of producing water by fall of 2016. To get there were many issues to address. First was how to fund the $40 million project and who to select to design and reactivate the facility.
So we're hoping to wrap negotiations up in May, package it up, and take it to Council the first part of June. That's our goal right now. There's a lot of things that have to come together. We have to reach an agreement in the negotiations, and we need to make sure the loan that we have applied for and all the paperwork for that comes together. You know, we're hearing very positive things from the state. They're wanting to make this loan happen.
For the proposed drought water rates that includes the desalination plant, the city assumed a loan with 6% interest and a 10-year payback. If state funding is secured with a lower interest rate, the proposed city water rates will be reassessed to reflect the actual terms of the loan. The plant was originally constructed by Ionics Incorporated out of Boston, Massachusetts, on a vacant piece of property on Yananali Street between the freeway and the El Estero wastewater treatment plant. Touring the facility today, one can see the decades-old technology still evident.
That was cutting edge, early 1990s technology, but certainly it's come a long ways. I mean, I think my iPhone will do more than what that computer in that room will do. So it's come a long ways, and certainly we'll be implementing the latest technology, which we're currently using up at our Cater water treatment plant or at El Estero. I mean, it's just vast difference. You can, operate the facility remotely. You can operate it with a much smaller staff than they did before. And so that technology is certainly going to help minimize those operational costs.
In addition, one of the issues that the environmental community has expressed concern over is the ocean water intake and its impact on marine life, and the amount of energy it takes to remove the salt and make potable water.
One of the biggest changes is going to be on the initial screens that are out in the ocean. Much tighter screen than we had before. In fact, it's a 1 millimeter screen. That technology is the best available technology out there to protect the marine environment. For those people at home, it's about the width of your screens on your windows. It's a really tight screen. It will prevent any significant marine life from getting pulled into the facility. Then after that, we're talking significant improvements in the efficiencies of pumps and even the RO membranes. We're looking at this facility using about 30% less energy than it did in the 90s.
The desalination plant will initially supply 3,125 acre-feet of water to the community per year, about 30% of Santa Barbara's anticipated water demand during the drought. However, the facility is permitted up to 10,000 acre-feet per year and can increase the water output if the drought continues.
Next spring, depending on how dry it is, there will be another decision point on whether we go from 3125 up to 75. So then we'll look at it and wait for the next spring, and if we continue to have a drought condition, we'll look again at the capacity and what we might need.
Even though the last 4 years have been the driest we've seen, the city remains confident we will have sufficient water supplies for health and safety needs, as long as the community meets or exceeds the required conservation savings.
Conservation is still important. It isn't as though we can stop conserving, and so I think it's important to be thinking, it is our plant. We're going to keep this facility, this community from running out of water, but conservation is always going to be a big part of weathering any drought. There's just a part of our supply we cannot make up.
I really hand it to our residents of Santa Barbara. They've really stepped up to the plate. In the last 6 months, we've reached a 23% conservation rate. With the new state regulations, we need now to get up to 25%. We'll be able to do that. We are number 4 in the state of the best conserving areas, and that was a recent poll done that looked at all the areas throughout California, and Santa Barbara knows that this is a time that we need to conserve, and they're following through.